Hello again. So let's go to our third exercise. So for this one, I want to create a new exercise with the project generator. Instead of duplicating the empty example as we've done before, or duplicating a pre-existing exercise, we're going to create one from scratch with the project generator. So the project generator is in the folder project generator inside your openFrameworks folder. So let's double click. And the first time you try to open, it says that project generator can't be opened. This is with the last version of the Mac OS. Project generator cannot be opened because Apple cannot check it for malicious software. So to solve this problem, you need to open your system preferences, and you need to go to security and privacy, and you get this notification, project generator was blocked because it's not from identified developer. You need to say open anyway, and then this pop-up comes up and you say open. Now this is not the end of it. You get another warning saying running on macOS 10.12 or later for the first time. Please close project generator, double click on run me first and reopen the project generator. So what the run me first will do is locate where in your computer you have openFrameworks. It really doesn't matter where you have it, but it will locate it and will build all the paths based on that location, right? So we need to close project generator as we are instructed, and then run the run me first command. When you try to run it, this is a command for the terminal, but when you try to run it, the same problem as before occurs. Run me first command cannot be opened because it is from an unidentified developer. So you need to say OK again, and then you go to security and privacy again, and you say open anyway. And then you get the authorization to open, and then it runs. And sorry, let me go to the terminal. It's behind all my windows here, and then process completed. So it's done what it has to do. So now you can quit terminal and you open project generator again. And now project generator has found where I have my openFrameworks folder. Now project generator knows where I have that folder. It's in users, my name, Dropbox, openFrameworks. So it's inside Dropbox, right? And inside Dropbox, I have a folder called openFrameworks with all the different versions of openFrameworks, and that's where it is. And terminal and that batch command has found it for me. So project generator is incredibly useful. You can add add-ons. There are add-ons that are built in with openFrameworks, add-ons that you can download from the openFrameworks add-ons website. But we are not going to do that now. So I can and another time we will look at add-ons and how to install it. You have a vast amount of add-ons that you can install, but that's not the point of this exercise. The point of this exercise is to demonstrate that you can create a new project from scratch very easily. Of course, the first time is not so easy because you have to set all this up, but normally it is once you've set it up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and name this as exercise 3, MouseDraw, and the project path is going to be not my apps, which is the default one, but I created another folder in apps called GMC OF, and it is here that I want that project to be created. If you want to leave it in my apps, by all means, leave it there. I just created a dedicated folder for this course. Project generator is really useful not just to create new new projects, but also to update old projects. So projects then with old versions of openFrameworks will be updated, because you can open a project or import a project, not just create a new one, but also import a project. And then instead of generate, you get the option to update it. So also if you download code from the web and you only have the code files, not the project files, it will also update the folder where the code is, and also include all the Xcode project, etc. So it's extremely useful. It's kind of an elixir for your code files in openFrameworks. So I'll just go ahead and press generate, and as you see, it appears here. And you don't even need to open the folder. You can press open in IDE, which is your development environment. In this case, it's Xcode, and it opens it here. So I have an error here, but I think it should be fine. Let me just build and check what's going on. What error did I get there? So it's empty. I'm building something which is empty. There's nothing in there. But just to demonstrate that there's no problem with this app. It should be running fine, but it's empty, right? We don't have any code there. Great. So now we can start coding in here. So we have our usual code files for openFrameworks, and everything has been renamed. So the schemes have been renamed, the project file has been renamed. Everything is really fine and ready to be used. So for this exercise, I want to create a simple drawing tool. And so for that, I need to draw a circle. I'll draw a circle where the mouse is, so the circle will follow the mouse. So I need two things. I need an instruction to draw a circle and an instruction to follow the mouse, right? So I'll go to CPP, and I'm going to show you in the documentation where you have this code for drawing a circle. So of draw circle is here. It's in graphics, of course, in the graphics class, and you can draw a circle with the XY coordinates and the radius, or with a 2D vector, or with a 3D vector. So we'll talk about 2D and 3D vectors later, but they're part of the GLM or GL math, new in openFrameworks kind of way of dealing with 2D and 3D vectors. So you need off-draw circle and then the coordinates. And the coordinates, I want the coordinates to be the mouse coordinates. And how do we obtain that? Well, we have mouse X and mouse Y, and it's in the base app class. So variable mouse X contains information about the current X coordinate of the mouse. So if in the off-draw circle function, if we put off-draw circle mouse X, mouse Y, and then a radius, it will work fine, right? So here in draw, let's type off-draw circle, off-draw circle, and then float X will be mouse X. I have this helper in openFrameworks, or in Xcode, so I can use tab to go to the second parameter, mouse Y, and then tab to go to the third parameter, and here a radius could be, I don't know, 50 is going to be fine. And the moment I put semicolon, I get the indentation, the correct indentation for this line of code. So what does this do? Let's press play and see. So we should have a circle being drawn where the mouse is, right? So you'll notice that this circle is not really clean. It's it has some jagged edges there because by default the circle is not a circle, is a polygon. That's the way openFrameworks draws circles. It's through a polygon with 22 sides. We can change the number of sides and thus improving the resolution of the circle. How do we do that? So in openFrameworks we have something called offset circle resolution, and offset circle resolution sets the resolution for the off-draw circle command. By default the circle is 22 points, but you can increase this. Usually it depends on the size of the circle you're going to use. By default I use 100, and then if I have bigger circles maybe I need a bigger number, but all these circles are cached in OpenGL to make them fast. So don't create a bigger number here than what you will actually need. Where should we put it? Because it's kind of a generic setting that will run only once in setup. Setup is fine for this. So offset circle resolution, and we got the help here of the autocomplete semicolon. Okay, great. So if we run it, you'll see that our circle is smoother. So the next thing I'm going to do is to have a different kind of background. So you see the circle is a bit smoother. I'm not sure if in the video this will be really apparent, but I can assure you if you do it in your own computers, you will see it very, very clearly. So I want to change the background. So to change background color, we use the command of background. And we have, for backgrounds, we have several types of colors we can use. We can use RGB colors, so that's you know, your regular 24-bit or 3-channel color with RGB. We have brightness, that this is grayscale. We can create of-color objects of off-color class. This is quite powerful, but a bit overkill for what we want to do. And we can use hexadecimal color, which uses the notation 0x and then 6 characters, 3 pairs of characters using hexadecimal. So FF is equivalent to 255 in hexadecimal, and you have all the range, and the first pair is equivalent to R, the second pair to G, to R meaning red, the second pair G meaning green, and the third pair B meaning blue. You know this from HTML color and other applications that use this kind of hexadecimal notation for color. So colors are expressed in bytes or 8 bits. So you have 8 possibilities in 8 bytes. You have 8 possibilities of zeros and ones, and all the possible permutations of zeros and ones. The total of these permutations is 256. Hence the 8-bit color, right? So it kind of relates to how computers manage information in this binary logic. But we start counting in 0 and we stop counting 255. So these 256 values are counting from 0 to 255. We have 256. But usually in computing, we, most of the cases we start counting in 0, not in 1. So I want to use, for me, for black, brightness is enough. I don't need RGB and set 0, 0, 0. I can just use brightness and then set 0, and that's it. It's enough. So if we run, we can see that now the background is black. Right? Okay. So the next thing I want to do is to, instead of having the circle moving around, simply moving around, I want it to leave a trail. I want it to leave kind of a little trail so that it becomes a bit like a drawing app, right? How can I do that? Well, there's different ways to do it. There's a quick and dirty way, which involves stopping the screen from refreshing. So how background works in openFrameworks is that you set a certain background and automatically openFrameworks will redraw that background for you. Every time it redraws, it kind of erases the past drawing. But you can switch that off. You can switch that auto drawing off. How do you do that? It's in graphics. Again, in the graphics has huge, right? It has a lot of methods. So offset background auto. This is it. So offset background auto sets the background clearing function to be auto, default, or not. If non-auto, then the background clearing will not occur per frame at the start of draw, but rather whenever off background is called. So if we stop off background from being refreshed every frame, the past drawings will remain in the screen. And that's what we're going to do. Offset background auto, and it accepts a boolean. Boolean is a value which is either true or false. Again, binary logic, 0 or 1, 0 being false and 1 being true. Offset background auto, false. So by default it's true. We're going to set it to false. So what's the consequence of that? We will see as soon as it stops refreshing. So off background auto, I've had, okay, there we go. So as you see, we can now draw because the past circles remain in the screen, right? I've had problems with set background auto and I've noticed that it's in certain configurations with certain computers and with certain versions of openFrameworks or Xcode. And my interpretation is that not all the kind of graphics card and how this is cached works really well. So I've seen flickering in some occasions. No, it worked fine and should work fine, but it's not the smartest way to accumulate things on a screen. It's easier to record the data, to store that data and redraw it. That's probably a smarter way to create a drawing app or something like that, rather than this kind of dumb way of keeping all the past drawings in place, because then it's hard to if you want to drag a drawing, for example, you have no control over the past data. But for this kind of quick and dirty result, it works fine. What else would I like to do? For example, I would like to change the color of the circle. So how would I do that? I can use something like offset color. So offset color, again, you have the kind of RGB 24-bit, so 3 times 8-bit color, but you also have RGBA, so alpha, so transparency, meaning you get another value. This value also goes from 0 to 255, and that means that 0 would be completely transparent and 255 would be completely opaque, right? So if I want to draw a red circle, for example, I would use RGB and 25500, 255,0,0, for example. I could also use hex color, and that would be 0xFF0000, right? Then you can have brightness, and you can have the color objects. There's all these different possibilities, but more often than not, we're going to use the RGB or the grayscale with or without alpha. So in this case, maybe I want red and I want a bit of alpha, so 25500 for red, and 50% alpha would be 127, so a range, a number in between 0 and 255. So let's take a look at this. So here we go. I don't know if, do you notice what happened here? We have a circle in 0, 0, because my cursor was out of the screen, so by default, the mouse X, mouse Y, when I mean out of the screen, sorry, I meant out of the window. By default, mouse X, mouse Y will be 0, and only when we start moving the mouse will mouse X, mouse Y be updated to the current value. So I want to get rid of that corner mouse. And you see a little bit of opacity here, but because we're accumulating past drawings, so very quickly it goes from 1 to 7. If you're in the same place, very quickly it goes from 1 to 7 by adding drawings on top of another. You go very quickly from transparent to opaque, right? So how do we get rid of that 0, 0? So an object is being drawn in point 0, 0. So we will only draw the circle if the mouse X or the mouse Y is not 0, 0, right? Actually, we can just check for one of them, for X or for Y. How do we check? With an if clause. So if in C++ is exactly very similar to what any other or most other computer languages. You type in if. So I'm typing if in order to encapsulate all the code that I have in draw. So I'm going to type if, and then what is the condition? Is the mouse X, if mouse X is different than 0, for example. You can also use mouse Y different than 0. You can also track, for example, exactly 0, 0, but I find that just tracking 1 is enough. We're going to use more complex if statements later in the course. So how do you use different than? So equal to this is a comparison operator for equality is equal, equal. Equal, just one equal is assign, or means is. We use it to assign values to variables. If you use equal, equal, we're comparing one value to another value. But that's for equality. For inequalities, exclamation point equal. It means not equal. If mouse X not equal to 0, meaning different, right? Curly bracket, and then you add all your conditions there, and then you close the if statement when the conditions you want to encapsulate are over. That means if the condition is true, meaning if mouse X is different than 0, then set the color to red and draw the circle. So I have Xcode kind of highlights the kind of complementary parenthesis or bracket to the one we're using, just to highlight where we are. Also, you'll notice that you have the ribbon here that is a little bit darker, meaning that you have curly bracket inside curly bracket. Now, I like to indent things properly to see when we have a bracket and you have a piece of code. I want to see that that code is inside a certain bracket. How would I do that? I can select all my code and then editor. We can structure re-indent. So what happens here is that basically Xcode re-indents everything properly. It kind of cleans up all the indentations for you and puts, so because the offset color is inside the if, it indents it, and of draw circle as well, it re-indents it for you. It's the same thing as you, if I had what I had before, it's the same as you manually adding a tab here and adding a tab there, but it's just you ask basically Xcode to do it for you, to do the cleaning up for you. So now, even if my cursor is outside of the window, that initial red circle doesn't get drawn, right? It only gets drawn when I'm with the mouse inside the window. Right. So now let's add a little bit of some changes here. So first, I want it to be a little bit less opaque. So let's see if we create a bit more tenuous kind of circles. I found that the circles were still a little bit too, so now it's kind of smoother, right? Kind of smoother drawings. And then I want to show you how to create a kind of a stroke, because we're only using fill. So how to use a stroke in openFrameworks? So actually, to use stroke, you need to draw things twice. So if I want to draw a stroke and a fill, I need two circles, one for stroke and one for fill. And if you want to draw something as a stroke, you have an instruction meaning draw it without a fill. And that instruction is of no fill. Okay. So now we should have only the stroke. It's kind of thin because we have alpha, quite tenuous alpha, but I think you can see that it is there. If you want to make the stroke a bit thicker, you can use offset line width, and then use, for example, 2, and you get a little bit a bit more thicker kind of lines. Okay, yeah, maybe 10 alpha of 10 is a little bit too little for the stroke, so I'll change it to 20. And now I want to draw a circle with fill. So I've I just copy pasted, and because I have used no fill, I need to now anything I'll draw that will be drawn after the first no fill will be of no fill instead of unless we type of fill, then we can create something with a fill and without a stroke. So you either draw a fill or a no fill. By default, it's going to be a of fill, but once you've set a no fill, you need to turn it on again, the fill again. So the inner circle, so the fill, I want it to be white, so that's 255, and with an alpha of 10, for example. So if you put 2 parameters, the first will be brightness, the second will be alpha. If you put 3 parameters, it will be RGB. If you put 4 parameters, it will be RGB plus and the alpha, right? So with C++, we have this kind of intelligent assignment of functions based on the number of parameters and the type of parameters. So C++ is very, very smart with that. So now we should have a white circle, with a white fill and a red outline, right, or a red stroke. Here we go. Now, what if I wanted to draw? Now we're drawing all the time, right? We can't switch it off. It's drawing all the time. What if to draw, I'd have to click and drag, right? This is common in many drawing applications. How would we do that? So I could replace this if with an if that instead of drawing only if the mouse is not 0, I'm going to draw only if the mouse is pressed. So how do we track that? Mouse pressed, we can get the mouse pressed. So this is not what we want. These mouse pressed, these are the functions of mouse app. These are the functions that are here. Mouse dragged, mouse pressed. What we want is this one of core events. Sorry, not this one, but it has to have of this one, of events. Core events are advanced events. What we want is just a simple events of events, and we want this one, of get mouse pressed. So you can check for specific mouse buttons if you have a multi-button mouse, or just put it in general. So you have a multi-button mouse, it has button 0, button 1, button 2, etc., etc., etc. But in this case, we don't need to track for specific buttons. So we just type here of get mouse pressed, and it will only draw all this stuff if the mouse is pressed, right? So let's check if it works fine. So now we don't need to track for that corner because we won't be always, clicking the mouse while we're out of the screen, etc. So it kind of preempts that bug or feature from occurring. And now I'm pressing the mouse or the trackpad in my case of my laptop, and I'm drawing. I'm making these drawings, right? So we're almost done. I'm getting, nicer results. This is a nicer, kind of more interactive, more allows you to create more interesting results. The only thing I want to finish with is how would I erase something and start again. As we saw before, actually it was in the definition of set background auto. If you want to trigger a background drawing again, you just invoke of background, right? In my case, I want to have it the same color, 0. So I can assign this to a key press, and we have two functions for key presses. We have key press or key release. I often find that key press is more instant, because when you push down the button, key release is when you release it, but it's more interactive when you key press. So with this function, you get automatically a key, which is the character that you've pressed, and you can use the if function to check if that key has been activated or not. So it would be something like this: if key is equal to, and then you put the character you want to track there, the key you want to track there. It could be C for clear or space. And when you're tracking characters, usually a convention is that we use single quotes. And if you're checking for strings of characters, you use double quotes. So if the key is single quote space single quote space, and if you press the space key, then you open a curly bracket, and you get the auto completion here, that you get the second curly bracket, because I'm building this if from scratch. The previous if, I already had the middle code there, the then part of the if. So what the instruction I want here is of background 0. So let's test it. So now we should be able to draw, and by pressing the space key on your keyboard, you erase things, right? And that's it for this exercise.